Warren Buffett was born in Omaha, Nebraska, on August 30, 1930. America was in the midst of a severe crisis, the Great Depression. His father, Howard Buffett, worked as a stockbroker. He barely made ends meet. At age 6, Warren was already selling gum. He bought a pack of 5 and sold them individually to his neighbors. During the summer, he sold bottled Coca-Cola. He'd buy 6 bottles for 25 cents, sell them individually for 5 cents, and make a 5-cent profit. It was simple, but it worked. At age 11, he bought his first stock. He bought 3 shares of City Service at $38 each. The money came from the sale. The stock immediately dropped to $27. He was nervous, but held on. When it rose to $40, he sold it, relieved. However, the stock rose to $200 sometime later. From then on, he learned, don't sell a good company too quickly. At 13, his family moved to Washington, D.C. because his father became a member of Congress. Warren took a job delivering newspapers. He woke up at 4:30 a.m. to deliver copies of the Washington Post. He was so diligent that he could schedule his routes quickly, earning $175 a month. That was a lot for a kid his age. With his friend, Don Danley, he bought a used pinball machine for $25. He put it in a barber shop. The money came in. He bought a second, then a third. Eventually, he had 8 machines in various locations. A few months later, he sold the pinball business for $1,200. At 14, he used his $1,200 savings to buy 40 acres of farmland. He rented it out to other farmers, becoming a landowner at 14. By the time he graduated from high school, he had $10,000 in savings, the result of his own hard work, selling newspapers, pinball, and land. He attended Wharton, the University of Pennsylvania, transferred to the University of Nebraska, and graduated at 20. He wanted to apply to Harvard, but was rejected. But this was a blessing. He enrolled at Columbia University in New York. There, he met Benjamin Graham, a professor who became his mentor. Graham taught him value investing, buying stocks, not paper, but companies. Look for companies that are selling at a lower price than their true value. After graduating, Warren desperately wanted to work with Graham. He even offered to work for free, but Graham refused. Warren returned to Omaha to work for his father's company. But he continued to write to Graham every year offering investment ideas. Finally, after 3 years, Graham relented. In 1954, Warren moved to New York and worked for Graham's company. Two years into his career, Warren returned to Omaha at the age of 25. On May 1, 1956, he formed Buffett Partnership Limited in his home. He had just $100 in initial capital, along with $105,000 from 7 other people, his brother, aunt, and in-laws. They believed in this young man. He worked hard, pored over financial reports, and looked for cheap companies. The result: the first year, 1957, a 10% return, while the stock market was down 8%. People began to notice. By 1962, at the age of 32, he had $7.2 million under management. Warren himself became a millionaire with a net worth of over $1 million. That same year, he began buying shares in the struggling textile company Berkshire Hathaway. He ran an investment partnership out of Omaha, using Ben Graham's cigar but strategy buying cheap companies, because they were priced lower than their cash holdings. He was smart, he was rich, but frankly, he was a bit lonely. No one really understood his way of thinking. Then in 1959, a friend of mine, Davis, came along. A friend of mine, Davis, said to Charlie Munger, "Hey, you should meet this Warren Buffett. You two are a great match." Charlie, who was in Omaha taking care of family, agreed to dinner at Johnny's Cafe. Imagine it. Warren, the upbeat, joke-loving Omaha kid, an investment prodigy. And Charlie, the lawyer from L.A., sharp-tongued, aloof, 7 years older. They sat down, and within 5 minutes, Charlie was cracking up at his own jokes. And Warren looked at him and thought, "This guy looks exactly like me." Warren once said, "The first time I met Charlie, after a few minutes in the restaurant, I knew this guy was going to be in my life. We were going to have fun together. We were going to make money together." They realized they had worked at the same grocery store owned by Buffett's grandfather as kids. They had never met because Charlie was 7 years older, but it felt like the universe had arranged this from the beginning. From that night on, their relationship grew closer. The phone started ringing. Long, obsessive conversations about stocks, business, and the world. Charlie was still a lawyer, but Warren kept whispering, "Charlie, you're wasting your time. You have better ways to make money than selling watches." This is where Charlie changed everything. Warren was a staunch follower of Ben Graham. His philosophy: buy something so cheap that even if the management is stupid, you still make money. It was like picking up cigarette butts on the street to smoke again. It worked, but it was disgusting and had no future. Charlie said, "Warren, forget this nonsense about cigarette butts. I'm a lawyer, and I see truly great businesses. Would you rather marry a beautiful woman or an ugly woman? So why buy a bad business just because it's cheap?" He said, "It's better to buy a great company at a fair price than a mediocre company at a cheap price." Warren was stubborn at first. He had been brainwashed by Graham, but Charlie kept convincing him. And the proof came in 1972. There was a small candy company in California called See's Candies. The family wanted $30 million. Warren offered $25 million. Warren thought this was crazy. The price was 3 times its book value, its net assets. By his old calculations, this was a bad deal. But Charlie asked, "Warren, do you realize that See's has brand power? It's an economic stronghold. Californians love this candy. They buy it for Christmas, for Valentine's Day. We could raise the price every year, and they'd still buy it, because it's a tradition." Warren believed him. They bought it for $25 million in cash. Long story short, from 1972 to 2011, See's Candies generated $1.65 billion in pre-tax profits for Berkshire. And the genius part, it only took about $40 million of those profits to reinvest in the business. The rest, all of that money, Warren used it to buy other things, like an insurance company, then the Washington Post, then, well, everything. This deal taught Warren about the power of branding, and that was 100% Charlie Munger's influence. After that, their partnership grew stronger. They weren't just friends, they were a unit. Now let's back up a bit to the vehicle they used for all this, Berkshire Hathaway. In 1962, Warren started buying shares in a dying old textile mill called Berkshire Hathaway. Business was terrible. It was a complete failure. The CEO, Seabury Stanton, kept selling shares to Warren, thinking he was just a regular investor. But Warren kept buying. And when Stanton tried to cheat him out of the buyback price, Warren became furious. He took over the company and fired the man. But the irony is, the textile business was burning through cash and never making a profit. Warren later called it his worst investment. But the structure was genius. He took this public company and made it a permanent investment vehicle. He didn't have to create new funds every few years. He could park his money in Berkshire forever. In the late 1960s, he liquidated all his partnerships and invested them in Berkshire. Charlie officially joined as vice chairman in 1978. Now the machine was running. 1967. They bought National Indemnity. This was a big move. Insurance was the key to success. You got the premiums up front called float, and you paid the claims later. Meanwhile, Warren could invest the money. It was like getting an interest-free loan from your customers. 1973. The stock market crashed. While everyone else panicked, Warren smiled. He bought the Washington Post at a low price. He ended up making more than 100 times the profit. 1976. He doubled his investment in GEICO, the insurance company he had loved since childhood. He eventually bought the entire company. 1983. He bought Nebraska Furniture, Mars from Rose Blunkin. Mrs. B, a 90-year-old immigrant who had outperformed her competitors. Warren loved workaholic founders. He wrote checks, shook hands, and never did an audit. Trust is everything. Here's his blueprint. Use insurance reserves to generate cash. Buy great businesses. Let managers run them, and hold them forever. By the 1980s and 1990s, Warren had become the Oracle of Omaha. His every move was watched by millions, and he made some iconic moves. Coca-Cola minus 1,988. This is a perfect example of the C's candy philosophy, on a grand scale. Warren saw that Coke was everywhere. It wasn't just a drink, it was a global feeling. He started buying shares like crazy. Berkshire eventually owned about 7% of the company. People thought he was crazy because Coke was in trouble, but Warren saw a bulwark. He once said, "If you gave me $100 billion and told me to take Coke's market share, I wouldn't be able to do it. That bulwark is what it is." That investment is still one of Berkshire's largest holdings, worth billions of dollars. American Express and Bank of America. He favors companies in trouble, but with strong brands. After the Salad Oil scandal of the 1960s, he bet on Amex. Decades later, in 2011, as the housing crisis was still raging, Bank of America collapsed. Warren stepped in with a $5 billion injection, preferred stock, high dividends. He beat the market and generated huge profits, but he's not perfect. And he admits it. Warren is brutally honest about his mistakes, and that's what makes him real. This one hurts. He bought the Dexter Shoe Company for $433 million. But instead of paying cash, he paid with Berkshire stock about 1.6% of the company. The shoe business was doomed, worthless. That meant Warren dumped 1.6% of Berkshire, which is now worth about $15 billion. He calls it the worst deal he ever made. What he missed. Warren admits he was foolish to pass up opportunities in tech. He watched Amazon grow from a bookstore to a department store. He admired Jeff Bezos, but didn't buy his stock. He missed an opportunity. He saw Google become a money-making machine. He even had the opportunity to buy its stock early on. But he didn't understand the tech advertising business. He missed an opportunity. He says he should have known, because he saw companies like Geico spending a fortune on Google ads. And Walmart. He literally shopped at Walmart his entire life, watched them crush their competitors, and still didn't buy enough shares. He bought some later, but he says he didn't buy 100 million shares when the opportunity arose to lose him $10 billion. Then, BYD, Apple, and the railroad 2000s and 2010s. As Warren got older, he adapted. And much of the credit goes to Charlie. One day, Charlie called Warren. He said, "Warren, we should buy this Chinese electric car company, BYD. The guy who runs it, Wang Chuanfu, is a genius. He's like Thomas Edison and Jack Welch combined." Warren, skeptical of technology and China, said, "Charlie, I'm not sure." Charlie persisted. In the end, they bought $232 million worth of shares. The investment eventually ballooned to $9 billion. It was entirely Charlie's choice. For years, Warren avoided tech stocks like he avoided a disease. "It's very hard to predict who's going to win," he said. But then he saw Apple, and he realized. This wasn't a tech company. This was a consumer brand. It was like See's candies with a screen. People were addicted to their iPhones. They wouldn't switch to Samsung just because the battery was 2% better. He started to believe. He invested more than $30 billion in Apple. At its peak, his holdings were worth more than $170 billion. It was Berkshire's largest single holding, generating more revenue than all the insurance companies combined. During the financial crisis, Warren took a big gamble on America. He bought the entire Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad for $26 billion. It was a bet on the future of the U.S. economy. Railroads transport coal, grain, and cars. It wasn't glamorous, but it was important. He called it a bet all the way on the United States. The bet paid off, adding billions of dollars in profits each year. Many billionaires get rich and buy yachts and private islands. Warren. He still lives in the same house he bought in 1958 for $31,500. He still eats McDonald's every morning and pays with exact change, sometimes pennies. In 2006, he announced he would give away 85% of his wealth. Later, he increased that to 99%. Most of it went to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Why Gates? Because Warren said, "Billy's younger and smarter, and he can make things happen." In 2010, he and Bill launched the Giving Pledge. They went to the super rich and said, "Hey, sign this. Promise to give away at least half of your wealth." Hundreds of people signed. This is how he changed the culture of wealth. During that time, he and Charlie continued to hold annual meetings. 40,000 people came to Omaha, like the Woodstock of the financial world. They sat on stage for 5 hours, answering questions, drinking Coca-Cola, and eating See's candy. Charlie grumbled, Warren laughed, and the audience was entertained. They showed that business could be fun, ethical, and that you didn't have to be rude to win. But nothing lasts forever. On November 28, 2023, Charlie Munger passed away. He was 99 years old. He would have turned 100 in 33 days. Warren delivered a short but powerful statement. He said, "Berkshire Hathaway could not have been built to this level without Charlie's inspiration, wisdom, and participation." For the first time in 60 years, Warren walked onto that stage alone. The emptiness was palpable. Charlie wasn't there to say, "I have nothing left to offer." His way of saying it ought to drop a truth bomb that would unsettle everyone. The partnership was over. Warren continued. He turned 93, then 94, but he began preparing us. At the 2024 annual meeting, he dropped a hint. And in May 2025, he made the announcement. He told the board to appoint Greg Abel as the successor CEO. Who was Greg Abel? He ran Berkshire's energy business. He was Canadian, hardworking, and understood the culture. Charlie had vouched for him years before. December 31, 2025. After 60 years at the helm, Warren Buffett officially retires as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway. He's not leaving. He remains chairman, still comes to the office, still reads the annual report. But the day-to-day business, capital allocation, that now falls to Greg Abel and his investment team, especially Ted Weschler. When he steps down, Berkshire has $380 billion in cash, imagine that. He leaves his successors a cash pile, and another $300 billion portfolio, with Apple, Coke, and Amex still at the core. His net worth, about $150 billion. But a more important statistic, he's given away more than $60 billion over 20 years. He's not taking any of his money with him. So, what can we learn from this 90-year journey? First, find your own Charlie Munger. Find someone smarter than you, who challenges you, and who makes you better. Warren is a genius, but Charlie made him a better investor and person. They haven't had a fight in 60 years. Not even once. Second, live within your means. The world's richest man doesn't need a new mansion or a fleet of private jets, although Berkshire owns NetJets, so he uses them too. But the point is, he's humble. Money is a scoreboard, not a lifestyle. Third, invest in what you understand, whether it's a candy company, a train, or an iPhone. Understand its competitive advantage. Is its brand strong? Will people still want it in 10 years? 20 years? And finally, give back. The giving pledge is his true legacy. Here's a message to the top 1%. You've already won the game. Now help others. Warren Buffett is no longer CEO. The Oracle era is over. But the blueprint he and Charlie built, its culture, its integrity, its long-term thinking still remains. And that's why this story isn't the end. It's just the foundation for the next 60 years. Thanks for watching. If you've watched this far, please subscribe. And remember, as Warren said, markets, like God, help those who help themselves. But, unlike God, markets don't forgive those who don't know what they're doing. See you in the next video.